fairly well. We haven't received many reports on the expressways, interstates, and freeways of major problems other than standing water. Most of those are pretty well drained, especially what has been rebuilt in the last 20 years or 25 years, including I-44 from about the 244 merge all the way across the river. So perhaps under the Lewis underpass there, we might run into some problems. But for now, we've not received any major flooding reports on the expressway systems. It's the main streets, especially underpasses, off-ramps, on-ramps, 31st and Yale under the Broken Arrow Expressway. That's one spot. Anywhere in some of the lower lying areas, maybe even South Lewis on the west side of Southern Hills. That's another low-lying area. But again, looking at the radar loop, more rain just set to feed back in to the metro area. I'm going to change radar products just a little bit here and expand this view and go all the way back, because Ben and John have been sharing some of this radar estimates from our computer models. And look at this big area of rain. I've expanded this far out further than we normally show you, but what we're looking at all the way back west into northwest Texas, we've got more rain that will move across the city, some of it heavy. This is out, you can see 200+ miles to the southwest, and it is moving our way. That's Broken Arrow on the left side of your screen. Again, what we're seeing is just the drainage system just overwhelmed. Ben?
And I do. I want to reiterate something. We don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings right now and no tornado watch right now in the Tulsa metro. But this flooding situation is a very dangerous situation. I just saw a tweet from the University of Tulsa giving the all clear for severe weather in the TU area. It's not true. We're in a flash flood emergency that will go through the overnight hours through at least 4:30 this morning. If you live in the Tulsa metro, you should not be out on the roadways. Dangerous situation that's going to play itself out here for at least the next 5 hours and likely into late Sunday morning as more rain is expected across green country. One thing that I'm showing behind me is the lightning strikes in the last 15 minutes across green country. I've taken all the rain off the radar and the warnings just to show the lightning. Any folks out there maybe out in front of this that hasn't seen much of the rain just yet, I don't know why you'd be still camping at this point, but if you are outdoors, still seeing about 290 lightning strikes. Not incredibly electric storms, very tropical rain is what we're seeing with some recent lightning strikes just there in the past minute or so. Tornado watch in effect until 4 a.m. That does not include the Tulsa metro anymore. That is along and southeast of I-44. From Muskogee County, Okmulgee County still in that warning, also Okfuskee County. And we are continuing to see the heavy rainfall across the area. Zoomed into the Tulsa metro. All of the light green you see in the background, that's the flash flood warnings. Flash flood warnings in effect, and a flash flooding emergency, first ever issued for Tulsa. And we're seeing some of the worst flooding in Broken Arrow. That's where we're seeing some of our live video right there. I take that full screen and see it a little bit better, and you can see looks like that's the top of some grass right there. Backyard just completely flooded with rain. Picture looks like in from a viewer there. Tons of rain in Broken Arrow. We've seen upwards of 3 inches of water. Roads impassable in parts of Broken Arrow as well. And looks like we've got some new information into the Fox 23 newsroom. Let's check in with Fox 23's Brittany Jeffers.
Now, we told you earlier in the evening that Rocklahoma was postponed due to that inclement weather. We have checked back in, and it has been called off for the rest of the night. Also, a breaking update from Captain Rod Howell. He tells us and confirms one person, a man, was shot in the abdomen today at Rocklahoma sometime between 10:30, he tells us. Now, the Mays County Sheriff's deputies are out there on the scene. At this point, they don't have any suspects, but they were monitoring the weather and the crowd. The victim, we are told, was taken to a Tulsa hospital. They do believe that he has non-life-threatening injuries, but at this point, Rocklahoma, at this point, they are monitoring the weather. It is shut down for the evening. We've gotten some reports from viewers who are inside of their tents, inside of their RVs. I'm told that the wind out there and the rain really coming down. They had warned that they were going to be monitoring. Officials were this situation out here, but tonight we do know that it is closed down, and officials are investigating a shooting out there as well. Let's go ahead and check back in with certified meteorologist Ben Walnick.
And they haven't even seen some of the worst weather in Rocklahoma near Pryor. Only, I say only, an inch of rain since midnight. That's nothing compared to some of the totals we've seen in the Tulsa metro. Hectorville now up to 5.5 inches of rain that we have seen across parts of green country. So some very, very heavy rainfall. Go ahead and take weather for full. That's where we're seeing the heavy rain moving back into the Tulsa metro. Flash flood emergency in place, and still seeing the line of heaviest rain now lined up from Adair to Pryor towards Wagner, just west of Muskogee, between Muskogee and Haskell towards Coweta. But more rain building back to the southwest. As I zoom things out even more, we continue to see that heavy rain across the area back to the southwest. Zooming things out even further, and let me switch to our other, I'm going to turn off the warnings and switch to our other radar source. Just look at this rain all the way back, almost the entire state, and back to the south as well, towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The rain to the south lifting to the north, the rain to the west moving to the east. It's all converging on green country, and we're going to continue to see that heavy rain across the area as we continue to track the flooding potential as we roll through the next several hours. So very heavy rainfall across the area, and we're going to continue to track that threat. Some of the rainfall totals in the Broken Arrow area, we've seen more than 4.5 inches of rain just in 3 hours, over 2.5 inches downtown, and close to 3 inches officially at the Tulsa International Airport. It's one of the wettest days we've seen in the past 3 years here, and unfortunately it's happening at a time when we've already seen a lot of rain. So very dangerous situation. Definitely stay indoors if you can tonight. We're going to be tracking the threat all night long. Let's continue our Fox 23 severe weather team coverage. We're taking a live look in Broken Arrow. We've got some emergency crews, it looks like, trying to block off some roads and perhaps help a vehicle that's been stranded by that water. The water receding a bit in Broken Arrow because we're starting to see some of that rain lighten up. That is absolutely some good news. Unfortunately, more rain is on the way. And the greater concern will likely be any areas around the creeks and rivers as those continue to rise, as we continue to see the rain upstream moving back into the Tulsa metro and parts of green country. Let's continue our team coverage with Chief Meteorologist James Adelot tracking the heaviest rain that we're seeing right now.
The heaviest rain has shifted east out of Tulsa, but we still have more rain falling in the metro area. Every drop, of course, aggravating the situation. We'll track the leading edge of this heaviest rain now from southern Craig County across Mays County. And as this moves to the northeast at about 25 to 30 miles per hour, that track's going to be close to Tip, Boatman, Salina, Houdow. This is all up close into the lakes here. Langley, Spavinaw, Tijuana, right there on the southeast shore of Grand Lake, just to the east of Pensacola Dam. Here's the view from Rocklahoma. We got notification a little earlier that they had shut things down for the night at Rocklahoma. So very heavy rain at Rocklahoma, just moving in right now onto Pryor. In fact, they've already had one round of heavy rain and more rain to come as we take a live look at Rocklahoma. Of course, always an eventful weekend at Rocklahoma, and the rain just adding to that. We continue to track the heavy rain across eastern Oklahoma right now. Look at the flash flood warnings. Two things to note. We have no severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings. We're just loaded up on flash flood warnings right now. Nearly the entire metro area. In fact, the National Weather Service calling the flash flood warning in Tulsa a flash flood emergency. It's the first time this National Weather Service has ever used that terminology, just trying to convey the extreme danger of this situation. Heaviest rain is now east of Tulsa, just along and east of Highway 69 from Pryor back down through Wagoner, just west of Muskogee right now. It's going to be moving up over Honor Heights Park and Highway 69. I'm going to take a little closer look in here into Wagoner and Muskogee County. So far, I've not seen any at least persistent signs of rotation. We did have some tornado warnings earlier. Those have long since expired. No tornado or severe thunderstorm warnings now, but there's still a band of very heavy rain. As this shifts into Cherokee County, we will see more flash flood warnings continue to be issued for the counties further toward the east. So again, it's still a very significant flooding threat across the city of Tulsa right now. As Ben has showed you, we've got rain stacked up all the way back into central and western Oklahoma, and there's really no indication that this is going to change. Now, northeast of Broken Arrow, we're getting up into the new Tulsa community. Significant flooding in the neighborhood on East 31st Street. That's between 193rd and 209th East Avenue, so that's far eastern parts of Broken Arrow, far eastern Tulsa, close to the Creek Turnpike outer loop. So we've seen some really heavy rain here. I'm going to jump ahead and again reiterate where the heaviest rain has fallen. And it's this stripe here of red from Broken Arrow all the way across Bixby, southern part of Tulsa County, and all the way back into western Okmulgee County too. Zooming in at some of the heavier amounts, getting into the purple, the radar rainfall estimate is 3 inches, but it looks like this is probably underestimated. You get into some of these purple spots, and that's where the heaviest rain has fallen. We're just zoomed in with this high-resolution data. St. John, Broken Arrow. Here's Central Broken Arrow Rose District, Wood Elementary School. This is 145th East Avenue. Dropping in, of course, becomes Aspen in Broken Arrow. And we've also had pockets here, 71st and Yale, close to the KRMG studios and our radio partners, all the way down close to Holland Hall. They're on 81st Street, just west of Yale. Then we get into the more widespread heavy rain once you get south of 91st Street. So in Broken Arrow, Oliver Middle School, Childers Middle School, Creek Turnpike South Loop here, south to Indian Springs Country Club, crossing the river. Of course, Hakey Creek Park on South Garnett Road. I expect South Garnett Road's probably underwater right now. It's a very low-lying area. South of the Creek Turnpike, crossing the Arkansas River, close to PSO Jinx, Kimberly-Clark plant there, north of Highway 67, and it just gets even heavier across southern parts of Tulsa County. Picture on your left, you can see a storm drain actually just bubbling up there in the middle of the street. So we've had just major flooding in the city of Tulsa with rainfall amounts topping 4 to 5 inches. Now, we've been talking about the flood threat this weekend now for about the last week, maybe even longer, that it would be much more of a flood threat than a severe weather threat. And indeed, that's what has come to pass. We're sitting on the 31st anniversary, of course, of that catastrophic Memorial Day flood back in 1984. Old-timers like me remember it very well as we tracked that flood water. Of course, I was a little younger at that point, but catastrophic flooding, which led Tulsa and the federal government to partner together to really improve the floodwater system in Tulsa. Now it is a model. The rain we've seen now has caused major flooding, but without the improvements Tulsa has put into the floodwater system over the last 30 years, tonight would have been much, much worse. But it's still bad enough, and it is still ongoing. That flash flood warning remaining in effect until 2:30 for the metro area. Just to run these down, these are the warnings that are in effect. All flash flood warnings. Wagner County until 3:30. That's Coweta, Porter, and Wagner. Craig and Mays County, and back up into Choteau, Pryor, Veneta. That runs until 4:30. That's the latest in the flash flood warnings that's been issued. Okmulgee and Tulsa County until 2:30. Nowata, Rogers County until 3:30. We've got even more flash flood warnings. Pawnee, Osage County, back into Creek, Lincoln, Okfuskee County. That will go on into the early morning hours as well. Let's check in with Ben Walnick. He's got more, Ben.
And we're continuing to track just how long this flooding potential is going to stick around. The latest run of our high-resolution forecast model is in. This comes in about every hour, and this is the latest one in for our 11 o'clock hour. Let me show you what we're looking at here as far as this heavy rainfall potential. If we could take weather for full. I've got this zoomed out a little bit further than we typically do, just to show you the rain building in from the south as well. So perhaps a break from the heaviest rain for a little bit, but during the overnight hours, there's that next round of very heavy rain rolling in, and unfortunately right around Sunday morning, around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning, that heavy rain tracking into the area, and more rain still tracking in from the south. It looks like we're going to be dealing with this all the way into Sunday afternoon. We may have seen the heaviest rainfall that we will see throughout this event, but if we're seeing a moderate to heavy rainfall for such a prolonged period of time, we will continue to see issues across the area. It's why we have our flash flood warnings. It's why we have the flash flood emergency for the Tulsa metro area. Let's check in. I believe this is in Broken Arrow with Ashley Lincoln, checking in on some of the hardest hit areas. Ashley?
Yeah, we're still out here on North Elm Street here in Broken Arrow, and I want you to take a look over my left shoulder. This is where we were earlier. You can see the water is completely gone down in that area, but we came across the street. You look at this runoff, it looks more like a river, and I'm going to show you as close as we can get to with being safe, but this entire road, it looks like it's North Elm Avenue. It's completely flooded out behind me. one car was brave enough to drive down this street, but we walked as close as we could, but the water's really running down the street more like a current, and to be safe, we're going to stop right here. But this house over here, they're really getting hit with the brunt of it, with water just overflowing in their driveway. If you take a look behind my shoulder over there, people are tiptoeing out of their cars trying to get inside the home safely, but the primary road, Elm Place, has gone down, but these secondary streets are still flooded pretty bad. Still, if you see an area and the water is going down, these secondary streets are really getting hit pretty hard with this flood water. If you can look at my feet, you can see how deep the water is. It's coming up to about my ankles right now. If I go further down, the water gets deeper behind me. But again, that goes on the point what we've been talking about all night. You just can't tell how deep these waters are. That's why it's safe not to drive through these pools of water. But we're going to continue out here looking at areas you should avoid. The streets are still blocked off here. They still are turning traffic around, as we mentioned earlier. Even though the water has gone down, they have not allowed any cars to come up here. The fire truck is still in that area. I did speak to firefighters, and they told me what happened is the batteries sit low on that fire truck, and once the water hit the batteries, that shut the fire engine off. But again, just drive safe out there, and if you see any standing water, do not drive through the water. But for now, reporting live in Broken Arrow, Ashley Lincoln, Fox 23 News.
We certainly appreciate that, Ashley. Now I want to talk about why this is happening, what's going on. We have all the ingredients in place for heavy rain, obviously the moisture in the atmosphere extending all the way up through, and a very strong lift to generate the rain and the storm. So our winds at the surface are from the south and southeast. Our winds about 4,000 feet up. This is a critical zone for what we're talking about with all this moisture coming in. That's what I plotted on right here. Our winds about 4,000 feet up are coming in from the south, from Texas, from the Gulf of Mexico, with a lot of moisture. What's plotted on this map color-wise, this is a representation of how much rain you could achieve. Basically, take the spot all the way up above your head. If you were to take all the moisture in that and condense it down into a puddle on the earth, how much would that amount be? And we're looking in eastern Oklahoma between 1.5 and 1.9 inches in that column above us. Obviously, we've had more than that. Why are we achieving bigger rain rates than that, bigger rain amounts? And why will we continue to do that? It's because that southerly flow keeps, it's called moisture transport. It keeps replenishing the amount of moisture available over eastern Oklahoma. And a big trough out to our west creates a region of lift right here. And we continue to lift all that rain into thunderstorms and basically wring out the clouds. Now, I've advanced all the way into our Sunday afternoon and evening. You see the brightest colors at that point are shifting into Arkansas and Louisiana. The darker colors indicating drier air aloft coming in from the west. So the hope is by the PM hours of Sunday, we're still obviously going to have scattered rain and storms, but maybe the most favorable area for heavy and flooding rains is going to shift east into Arkansas. And certainly by Monday, getting into Memorial Day, we're going to have moisture around, we're going to have scattered rain and storms, but not the situation quite like what we have out there this evening with that incredibly heavy rain rate. And in fact, as we get a little towards midweek, the hope is we could see some more sunshine and much lower rain amounts. We go back over to the Fox 23 News Desk with Brittany Jeffers. What have you learned?
Well, just kind of to reset for everyone, we do have our emergency personnel all across the area, Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Sapulpa, Glenpool, all the major areas right now. Wawaso monitoring the streets. We do have some video of Elm and Elgin, I believe, that we can show. You can see the lights right there with firefighters, police officers out there monitoring many cars, we are told by dispatch, that have been stalled. This particular road right here is closed. We also found out 9th and County line in Broken Arrow is shut down. Lansing into Elm and Houston, also very dangerous to drive right now. We have been told Broken Arrow Fire Department is responding to water rescues in the area. They are telling folks, stay inside your homes. Don't get behind your wheel. Do not drive in these conditions. Tulsa police also right now are barricading streets in the area. 31st and 41st on Sheridan are closed right now. They're in the scene of high water along Highway 169 and the Broken Arrow Expressway southbound. They are monitoring that. We've already had some terrible news tonight of a car crash. A 16-year-old driving hydroplane slammed into another car. The passenger, we are told by police, died at the scene. So they are just cautioning people to stay off the roadways. If you do see any of those barricades, do not try to drive around them. Let's check in now with our chief meteorologist, James Adelot.
Okay, again, on the wide view, we've got more rain, and this is solid rain. It goes past what the radar can see from Tulsa all the way back into western parts of Oklahoma. Our heaviest band of rain right now, we want to start from north and go all the way south. We're going to track this heavy rain. First, Montgomery County just had a Twitter question about flooding in Montgomery County. So far, I've not received any reports in Montgomery County of any flooded roads. Now, we've had some pretty heavy rain here, but they've never issued a flash flood warning from the National Weather Service in Wichita. They have a warning responsibility here in Montgomery County, but so far, things have been quiet, with the exception, of course, of the heavy rain. Now, I'm going to move a little bit further south along the line, and as we move south, we will do some tracking, especially along the leading edge here of this line of thunderstorms. Now, from Chautauqua, kind of curving through Craig County, just moving into Veneta right now. Some heavy rain here. Let me do another track here. It looks like it took that just a little bit too soon. So we'll do right along the Kansas-Oklahoma state line as this extends all the way south into Mays County. Heaviest of the rain now has cleared prior, but as this continues moving northeast at about 30 miles per hour, Blue Jacket 11:53, Spavinaw 11:57. Then we get past midnight, Disney at 12 o'clock, Cleora 12:02, Bernice 12:08, Narcissa, Dotyville, Miami 12:17. And of course, right around Disney, Cleora, Bernice will be dealing with Tijuana and some other communities right there closer to Pensacola Dam on the south side of Grand Lake. Let's move a little further to the south. Along this line in Wagner County, the heaviest rain now has moved just east of Wagner. In fact, it's falling on Wagner right now. Moving this track back to the northeast, again, rolling at about 30 miles per hour. Over the next 30 minutes or so, Locust Grove 11:57, Ely, Snake Creek, Lost City, Peggs toward Uchi. Now, we're not seeing any circulations on the leading edge of this line, and there are no severe thunderstorm warnings in effect along this line. Certainly no tornado warnings either. So that is a little bit of good news. Moving further south into Muskogee, we're continuing to track at least the leading edge here from around OK. Moving right into Muskogee right now, it's on Highway 69, close to Honor Heights Park. And as we move this back at about 30 miles per hour, Chakota 11:53, Muskogee 11:55. That is the stream of taillights leaving Rocklahoma a little bit earlier. So that picture coming into us. There's Mallard Bay 12:01, Davis Airport south of Muskogee at about 12:03, Fort Gibson 12:08, Dutchess Landing 12:12, the Hulbert area at 12:16. Let me go all the way south along this line into southeast Oklahoma. Again, we're not severe here, but we're still looking at this line of pretty heavy rain. And as that moves toward the northeast, we will still see some flooding issues. That's going to be moving northeast again. We'll hold that 25 to 30. Crowder, Canadian Carbon, Haleyville, Hartshorn, Longtown, Featherston toward Drum by 12:18. One pocket of pretty heavy rain right here on the Indian Nation Turnpike just to the east of Kiowa. It's going to be moving up toward Hartshorn as well. Ben Walnick, our full severe weather team, we've been standing by tracking this all night long. And not only that, we were ahead of this from the start, Ben. We've been talking about this flooding threat for this weekend all the way back to last weekend.
Yeah, we've been tracking this for, several days, 5 to 7 days, been talking about especially this weekend. And then as the closer we got to the event, we narrowed it down this morning, even on Fox 23 News this morning. I said we'd see the first wave of rain right around 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the heaviest rain moving in after 8 o'clock. And that's exactly what happened as we're seeing that heaviest rain still tracking through parts of green country. There is one storm that we're seeing a little bit of broad rotation with right now. This is very near Greasy and tracking to the north near Cherry Tree. I do want to do a storm track on this. The rotation, it's not, what I'm seeing on radar isn't telling me anything that we're going to see a tornado with this, but at least seeing enough rotation to be a little bit of concern. So tracking this as we zoom things in just to the south of Cherry Street, and I'll go ahead, or Cherry Tree, and storm track on this moving at 40 miles per hour to the north, and not going to use our red. This is just a strong thunderstorm, and tracking, let's see, this would be just south of Cherry Tree, right in here, tracking things to the north. So Cherry Tree here in the next few minutes, Zion right around midnight, and then Stillwell as we roll into Sunday morning at 12:04 in the morning. So again, starting to see some rotation with that, but we are not seeing anything that would indicate immediately that we're going to see a tornado, but we'll continue to track that very carefully. Now, we've had some of our hardest hit areas across green country been in southern and southeastern parts of the Tulsa metro. We've talked about Broken Arrow a lot and Glenpool. We've got a crew out in Bixby right now where we've seen some of the worst flooding. Let's check in with Martina Del Bonta.
Yeah, Ben, we're actually here on 112th and Mingo, and the road here is flooded. I was just talking to the police officer, and the water is trying to get to the pond that's off in the distance, but the water in the pond level is pretty much on the road level, so there's nowhere for this water to go. We have a ruler. If you remember in Memorial, it was up to about 5 inches. Well, right here is only about 1.5 inches, but I'm kind of in the shallow. I can walk more down into here, but this water is just a very messy situation. That went up to about 3 inches here. So the water is not good to drive through. Cars have been trying to come up and they have to get turned around. They're trying to go through this neighborhood to get around places. So if we've been saying this all night, if you are at home, stay at home tonight. This is not, I see JJ walking and the water is just rippling over on us. It's not worth it, you guys. Reporting live from Bigsby, Martina Del Bonte, Fox 23 News.
Thank you very much, Martina. Again, the big advice tonight, turn around, don't drown, and if you don't have to be out, don't. Flood warnings across most of our viewing area right now, from the Kansas border all the way down to the Red River, Oklahoma City, up to Tulsa, and as far east as Highway 69, Veneta, Pryor, and almost into Muskogee now. Okmulgee and New down in Holdenville and Hughes County, flash flood warnings that go through the night. And in Metro Tulsa, the terminology for this evening is a flash flood emergency per the National Weather Service. And part of the reason for that is that we're seeing flash flooding in places where you don't expect to see it. And by that I mean low-lying areas that routinely flood. We kind of have in mind, you avoid that when it's flash flooding. One of the issues with tonight, and maybe even tomorrow morning too, is that we would see flooding in places that normally don't have a history of flooding, that you wouldn't expect to have to detour. So again, with the heavy rain that has come down and has yet to come down, we are concerned about that flooding. In fact, I can put on our storm reports. We have had some severe weather. We've had tornado warnings, rotating storms. Fortunately, the rotations with those have never been very persistent, but that's characteristic of this kind of weather pattern. There's a lot of spin in the atmosphere, but there's almost too much in terms of certain ingredients, so that it kind of chokes out at a certain point. It doesn't maintain that circulation for long periods of time. So it's good in the regard that we don't have violent long track tornadoes, but it's bad because we have to, of course, pay very close attention to the radar for these circulations that come up in a matter of 10 minutes and then go away just as quickly. But earlier in the day, south of Oklahoma City, and in fact west of Oklahoma City, I want to say around Purcell, there were some more substantial tornado reports. We've of course been covering tornado warnings, and a good number of them around Hughes and Okfuskee County, and no reports out of those so far. But as you can imagine, with the heavy rain, we're not going to maybe get the damage reports and pictures as quickly as we ordinarily would. Some wind, strong wind, rolled through the south side of Metro Tulsa, where we have the blue square there. That's what that is indicating. In fact, wind gusts almost to severe levels. 50 miles an hour plus to almost 59 miles an hour, rolled through Bixby and Broken Arrow. Hail has really not been much of an issue today. When you look at the nature of the air that we have over us, it is actually more characteristic or reminiscent of the air that you have during a tropical storm or a hurricane, and that's why we're seeing these very heavy rain rates. The air is saturated all the way from the surface to the highest levels of the storm, so there's just a lot of moisture available for these storms to put down as heavy rain. And of course, where we have all of these little turquoise diamonds, those are the flooding and flash flooding reports that have come into us. In fact, too many at this point to even be able to go through every individual one. There are so many. Big concentration of them around Metro Tulsa, but also in southeast Kansas. Many around the Oklahoma City area, where they've had a number of water rescues out there today. And in southeastern Oklahoma, not many so far, but we're again in the very beginning stages of this down there. And I wouldn't be surprised if flash flooding really became an issue there late overnight and tomorrow morning, because if you'll remember from last weekend before last, our corridor of heaviest rain was from Wilburton back towards Okemah, and these are the areas that are really picking up on the widespread rain now. You've had on and off downpours. Now it's becoming a little more continuous. I'll switch over to show you the radar animation over eastern Oklahoma over the past few hours. The storms have actually changed nature a little bit. It was rolling at us as a squall line, and that kind of fell apart. The leading edge isn't quite so gusty, but there are still some circulations we're watching in southeastern Oklahoma. But now we have a very just messy band of rain that's feeding in from south to north, as I mentioned, continuing to replenish the amount of moisture in eastern Oklahoma available for storms to create heavy rain and flash flooding. And that rain extends all the way back into southwest Oklahoma and northern Texas. On the other side of the screen, that's the live view from the Fox23 tower cam. And quieter now in terms of lightning. What I can do is change this out so we can look at the lightning activity. And of course, pretty busy as the heaviest of the rain and the storms were rolling into Tulsa. Now what we have actually is some emerging lightning activity down around McAllister in Pittsburgh County. 28 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes down there in the past 30 minutes. Also of note to Rocklahoma, which of course is not going on, but still there are folks out there. Number of strikes in